Have you ever stopped to wonder what makes a person quietly priceless as they grow older? I'm not talking about money, not fame, not the fancy car in the driveway or the number of likes on a photo. No, I'm talking about something far deeper, something you can't measure, but you can feel the moment you step into the same room with them. It's funny how, as we age, the world teaches us to believe we're fading, that somehow after 65, we've become invisible, like life has moved on without us. But let me tell you a little secret. The people who become truly irreplaceable in this world aren't the ones who shout the loudest or chase the biggest dreams. They are the ones who carry themselves with quiet strength, with grace, and with a kind of peace that makes others want to be near them. Over the years, I've met many people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who seem to shine without trying. You walk into their presence, and somehow the room feels calmer, warmer, safer. They're not trying to prove anything. They don't need to, because what they've cultivated inside themselves is more precious than gold. In this video, we're going to talk about 6 powerful qualities that, if you choose to nurture them, will make you not just respected, but cherished. These aren't things you're born with. They're not about having good genes or good fortune. These are choices, habits, ways of living that you can begin at any age starting today. And let me tell you, when you do, something magical happens. People will feel drawn to you without knowing why. You'll wake up feeling lighter, more at peace, and deeply fulfilled. So if you've ever wondered how to hold on to your dignity, your purpose, your inner light as the years pass, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see yourself and the way the world sees you. The first priceless quality, emotional stability. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how, in a chaotic room, there's always that one person who keeps their cool? They're not the loudest. They don't rush to react. But somehow, when they're around, everything feels a little more grounded. That, my friend, is what we call emotional stability, and it's one of the most precious qualities a person can carry, especially after 65. You see, when we're young, emotions run wild. We get angry quickly, worry too much, or let the smallest things ruin our day. But as the years go by, life slowly teaches us storms will come, but how you face them is what matters. I remember an old neighbor of mine, Mrs. Helen. She was well into her 70s when I met her. She had wrinkles around her eyes, but her smile was always calm, like a quiet sunrise. Her family went through ups and downs. Her husband passed away. Her children moved far away. But not once did I ever hear her complain or explode in anger. When things went wrong, she would simply sigh, put the kettle on and say, "Let's sit down and talk it over." That kind of steadiness is not born overnight. It's something you cultivate through years of facing disappointments, joys, losses, and still choosing peace over panic. And here's the truth. People gravitate toward those who make them feel safe. If you can be the calm in the storm, the one who listens instead of reacts, the one who doesn't let life's small fires burn you out, you become invaluable. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to learn to pause, breathe, and not let every wave knock you down. Because at this stage in life, your emotional energy is too precious to waste on things you cannot control. So if you want to become someone others trust, respect, and naturally look up to, start by mastering your emotions. When you stay calm, you give others permission to calm down too. And in a world full of noise, the one who speaks softly is often the one everyone listens to. The second priceless quality, a sense of security. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're on a boat. The sea is calm, the sky clear. But even when the wind starts blowing, even when the waves get high, you know you'll be all right. Why? Because the captain knows what he's doing. The boat is solid. That, my friend, is the feeling people have when they're around someone with a sense of security. This quality has nothing to do with how much money you have, what car you drive, or how big your house is. It's about the way you carry yourself. The unshakable confidence that says, no matter what happens, I'll figure it out. I once met a man named Mr. Robert at a community gathering. He was 68, retired from a simple teaching job. No flashy clothes, no fancy words. But when he spoke, you listened. When he smiled, you felt safe. There was something about the way he looked at life, like he'd seen storms, survived them, and could now sit back and say, it's going to be okay. You see, people over 50 often forget this. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You've already walked through fires most young folks can't even imagine. You've buried dreams, raised children, lost friends, rebuilt yourself again and again. That experience becomes your anchor. When you stop chasing approval and start owning your scars, you give off a quiet power. It's the kind of energy that says, you can lean on me, I'm not going anywhere. And here's something beautiful. The people around you, your kids, your friends, even strangers, they can feel that energy. It's like standing next to a big old tree. You don't need it to talk. You just need it to be there, strong, rooted, unmovable. So if you want to leave a mark in this world without saying a word, start by becoming that solid ground for others. Let them feel safe just by being near you. Because the older you get, the more your presence becomes your greatest gift. The third priceless quality, the calm in the storm. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a room where everyone's panicking, but there's that one person who stays calm? The one who doesn't raise their voice, doesn't run around, just looks at the chaos, takes a deep breath, and says, all right, let's see what we can do. That kind of calm, it's rare. And the older we get, the more precious it becomes. You see, when you've lived long enough, over 50, over 60, you've seen all kinds of storms. Financial troubles, health scares, broken hearts, family drama, even loss that takes the wind right out of you. But here's the thing. When you've walked through enough storms, you stop fearing the rain. I remember one afternoon, sitting at a coffee shop, overhearing an older woman talking to her granddaughter. The young girl was crying, heartbroken over something at school. But the woman didn't jump in with advice. She just smiled gently and said, sweetheart, this won't matter 5 years from now. Cry if you must. But remember, you're stronger than you think. That's what calm looks like. Not ignoring the storm, but knowing it'll pass. When people over 50 show this kind of calm, they light the way for others. They become the lighthouse in the dark, the steady hand when others are trembling. And you don't have to say much. Sometimes, just your silence, your steady breath, your unshaken presence is enough to calm the whole room. In a world that's always rushing, always loud, always reacting, your calm becomes a rare, healing thing. You teach by example. Life will shake you, but you don't have to shake with it. So next time the world feels like it's falling apart, try this. Take a deep breath. Step back. Be the person others can look at and think, if they're not panicking, maybe I don't have to either. Because after all, true strength isn't how loud you are. It's how calm you can be when everything else is falling apart. The fourth priceless quality, the wisdom of listening. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone truly listened to you? Without interrupting, without judging, without rushing to give advice. You see, The older I get, the more I realize listening is an art. And those who've walked through life's ups and downs, those over 50, over 60, often become the best listeners. Why? Because by the time you've reached this age, you've learned something most young folks don't understand. People don't always need answers. Sometimes, all they need is for someone to sit beside them and truly hear them. I once visited an elderly man named Mr. Raymond. He was 82, lived alone in a quiet neighborhood. Every Friday afternoon, neighborhood kids would come by, not because he had candies or toys, but because he would sit with them on his porch and listen. He'd nod, smile, sometimes chuckle at their wild stories, and every now and then he'd say, "That must have been hard, huh?" Or, "Tell me more." That's all. No lectures, no advice, just the kind of listening that makes you feel seen. And that, my friends, is a priceless quality. In a world full of noise, social media, breaking news, constant opinions, true listeners are a rare breed. But when you become that person, something magical happens. People open up around you, hearts heal in your presence. You become a safe place, a soft landing for weary souls. And the beautiful thing? Listening doesn't cost a thing. It just requires patience, empathy, and a little wisdom that only comes with age. So next time someone starts telling you their worries, try this. Don't think about how you'll reply. Don't prepare advice. Just look them in the eyes and listen, like their story is the most important thing in the world. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. The fifth priceless quality, the courage to let go. Have you ever held on to something for too long? A grudge? A regret? A version of yourself that no longer exists? You know, when we're young, we're taught to hold on. Hold on to dreams, to love, to people, to success. But as we get older, the real lesson isn't about holding on. It's about learning when to let go. I once sat beside a woman named Mary at a nursing home. She was 78 years old, sharp as a tack, and had the kind of laugh that could light up a room. But when we talked, she told me something that stuck with me. I spent half my life angry at my sister over something I can't even remember now. And by the time I wanted to forgive, she was already gone. Her eyes welled up when she said that. Not because of what happened, but because of all the years wasted carrying a weight she didn't need to carry. You see, letting go doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you've lost. It simply means you're brave enough to stop fighting battles that no longer serve you. Maybe it's an old hurt. Maybe it's a version of yourself who made mistakes. Maybe it's expectations that you or others placed on you years ago. At 50, 60, or 70, it's time to understand you don't need to prove yourself anymore. You don't need to carry yesterday's wounds into today's sunshine. The people who age gracefully, who smile with a light in their eyes, those are the ones who've mastered this art. They've made peace with the past. They've let go of bitterness, shame, and the fear of what if. And when you let go, you finally make space for peace, for new memories, for the freedom to live the rest of your days without the invisible chains of regret. So I ask you now, is there something you've been holding on to, quietly, painfully, all these years? Maybe today is the day to finally set it down. The gentle reminder, you are enough. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and truly smiled at the person looking back? Not for how young they looked, not for how much they achieved, but simply because they've made it. Through all the storms, all the seasons, all the unexpected turns. You see, by the time we reach 50, 60, 70, the world often tells us we're past our prime, that the best is behind us, that we need to slow down, fade away, step aside. But let me tell you something they don't say enough. You are enough. right now, exactly as you are. You've survived broken hearts, bad decisions, sleepless nights, and days when you thought you couldn't go on. You've laughed until you cried, cried until you laughed, and carried others even when your own knees were shaking. That's not aging. That's living fully. That's the kind of beauty no wrinkle cream can give you. It's written in the lines around your eyes, the softness in your voice, and the quiet wisdom in how you choose your battles. Some days, you might look back and wish you had done things differently. But the truth is, you did the best you could with what you knew then. And isn't that all any of us can do? So today, I want you to pause, breathe, and instead of chasing something new to become, look at the version of yourself standing here, now, in this moment. You've earned every gray hair, every smile line, every scar, inside and out. You've earned the right to rest, to laugh louder, to say no without guilt, and yes without fear. You don't need to hustle for worthiness. You don't need anyone's permission to be happy. You are enough, and you always have been. A new beginning, it's never too late. Have you ever watched the sun rise? Not at 6 in the morning, but at 6 in the evening after a long, cloudy day. That soft light breaking through when you thought the day was done. That's exactly what life after 50 can feel like. A second sunrise you never expected. You see, they never told us when we were younger that life doesn't end after the children grow up, after the career winds down, after the numbers on the birthday cake grow bigger. Nobody prepared us for the fact that sometimes the most beautiful chapter starts when everyone else thinks the story is over. You might be sitting there thinking, I've missed my chance. I'm too old to change. But let me remind you, a tree doesn't stop growing because it's tall. The roots keep deepening long after the branches bloom. I have met women who learned to dance at 60, men who started painting at 72, grandmothers who finally traveled to Paris at 75, and friends who found love again at 80. You are not too old to start something new. You're not too late to heal an old wound. You're not too far gone to rediscover who you are underneath the noise of the years. This next chapter, it's yours to write. And maybe now you can write it with less fear, with more freedom, with the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing how much you've already overcome. So take the class, book the ticket, call the old friend, forgive yourself. Because if there's one thing life keeps teaching us, it's that the sun always rises again, even when we thought it wouldn't. A gentle reflection, the beauty of stillness. You know, my friend, when I look back, it's not the loud moments I remember most. Not the big wins, the applause, the milestones. It's the quiet ones. It's that afternoon when I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, listening to the sound of the wind brushing against the leaves. It's the laughter of my children echoing down the hallway when they didn't know I was listening. It's the way my heart swelled watching an old couple holding hands in the park. Two people who've walked through storms and still chose to walk together. As we age, the world keeps telling us to keep moving, keep chasing, keep proving. But maybe, just maybe, the secret to peace isn't in doing more. It's in finally allowing ourselves to be still. You've spent decades carrying the weight of expectations, taking care of others, worrying about tomorrow, chasing things that, looking back now, maybe weren't that important. But today, right now, you're allowed to put it down. You're allowed to breathe, to smile at the person you've become, to love your wrinkles, your stories, your scars. Because every line on your face is a sentence in the novel of your life. Every ache in your bones is a reminder that you've lived and you're still here. And in this stillness, when you finally stop running, That's when you realize you were never behind. You were always exactly where you needed to be. So tonight, when the house is quiet and the world feels too big, place your hand over your heart. Feel it beating. That's life, still choosing you. And if tomorrow brings another sunrise, smile at it. Not because you have to chase it, but because you get to see it. The best chapters of your story aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones where you finally hear yourself again. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me.